Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here this morning. Welcome. Sergeant Rob Forster, last name misspelled Forster, and I'm a sergeant in the investigative section at the police department here. I'll cover what was a fairly typical weekend for us, so I'll cover a couple things here real quick, and then if anybody has any questions, we'll go into that. For the aggravated assaults, those were all domestic related. I will bring attention to on a burglary report that officers were called to at about 3:17 p.m. on the 25th. Officers responded to the area of South Arcadia Road here in Sioux Falls, where it was reported that a male was possibly having an overdose issue, along with what they believed was a stolen vehicle at the residence in the driveway. When they arrived there, they made contact with the person. Through their investigation, they did find that the vehicle had been stolen. It had some substitute license plates on it. They were able to determine that those license plates were also stolen from here in town. And some of the officers noticed several new power tool items scattered throughout that vehicle. They did speak with the gentleman that had arrived at the residence in that vehicle. He was identified. Last name is spelled Hooker. First name is Eric, Eric. His date of birth is September 8th of 1982. Through speaking with him and what they noticed in the vehicle, they developed a rapport with him, spoke with him further. They ended up recovering about $3,200 in power tools of assorted varieties and brands. Through their conversation with him, they learned that he had been inside of a business earlier in the day and had taken a lot of these items out of that business. He admitted to that. So they were able to verify that. Our property crime section is still following up on some of the other items that were taken to try to find the owners of that. Ultimately, through their investigation, Mr. Hooker was lodged for second-degree burglary, grand theft, possession of a stolen vehicle, possession of burglary tools. Was also placed on a parole hold. Through their conversations, it led them into the residence as well, where various items of narcotics were discovered. That investigation is ongoing and continuing at this point, so I won't share any specific details about that. The next item that I would like to cover is a report of a larceny that we were called to, also on the 25th. This involved an incident near 43rd and Minnesota Avenue, where officers were called to that area for a suspicious person. Once they arrived at the area, they made contact with the gentleman, and through speaking with the business owners there in the area, they just wished for him to leave the lot because he was just causing a little bit of concern. So, being it's private property, the officers asked him to leave, to vacate the area and not return. As it is common with officers when they go to a scene, if they do ask somebody to leave, sometimes if they don't have to leave right away for any emergency purpose, they stick around a little bit, do a little bit of due diligence and make sure they don't come back. This particular gentleman came back fairly quickly. They recontacted him, and he was quite belligerent with them at that point. They also were contacted by a citizen in the parking lot who noticed some things missing from his car and had walked over to them and said that they had seen that particular gentleman in their car just prior to officers getting there. So at that point, the gentleman was arrested for failure to vacate. He was also arrested for criminal entry into a motor vehicle. Through further investigation and talking to people in the area, they found out that he had went into 4 vehicles on the property. And he was also arrested for second-degree damage to property because he had damaged some of the property on one of those vehicles. As they were taking this gentleman into custody, one of the officers noticed that he was wearing what was described as a brand new cap that had a very distinctive logo on it. That officer noticed a semi-tractor and trailer parked in the area that had the same logo on it. So that kind of raised their suspicion. They went over and made contact with the trucking company and had found out that this gentleman had taken this out of the vehicle. So they were able to connect a couple more victims in the area. The gentleman that was arrested in this is a 19-year-old Sioux Falls resident. Last name is Abdu. His first name is spelled Goitom. And he was lodged on several charges, as I stated there. The last thing I'll cover is a weapons violation that we were dispatched to. Actually, we weren't dispatched to it, I'm sorry. At around 1 o'clock in the morning on July 26th, one of our street crimes officers was in the area of North Summit and First Avenue, and they noticed a gentleman whom they had had prior contact with and recognized that he had some felony warrants for his arrest. Excuse me. That gentleman was able to get into a vehicle before officers contacted him. So they followed behind him. They made a traffic stop. As the officer went to approach the car, the vehicle sped off at a high rate of speed. Given the charges of what the warrants were for, officers didn't engage in a pursuit at that point. A short time later, one of the other partners with that officer on the street crimes unit noticed that vehicle and actually saw it pull over. They attempted to make contact. The driver of that vehicle and the lone occupant of the vehicle fled on foot. Officers gave chase, and they were able to take this person into custody. The person that was taken into custody, last name is Jelde. It's spelled M-J-E-L-D-E. First name is Trey, T-R-A-Y-E. Middle name Jeffrey, common spelling. He's a 24-year-old white male from Sioux Falls with the date of birth of January 5th, 1997. He was lodged for eluding, fleeing police, and when he was taken into custody, he was armed with a firearm. The person involved in this is a former convicted felon, and they also found out through their investigation that the firearm had recently been stolen in the metro area. So he was lodged also for possession of a stolen firearm, possession of a firearm by a felon, and the outstanding warrants that I had mentioned before. This is a good example of follow-through by some officers, and just gives the public an idea of some of the dangers that they face out there when they are trying to take somebody into custody. We never know if they're armed or not. But a good job by them to take a wanted felon off the street and also recover a stolen firearm and get that out of somebody's hands so something didn't happen with it. That's all I'm going to specifically cover today. Does anybody have anything? Yes. Last name spelling is M-J-E-L-D-E. First name Trey, T-R-A-Y-E, and middle name Jeffrey, common spelling.
Can you say the day and time of the previous two cases as well as burglary and larceny?
Yep. So the burglary was reported to us at about 3:20 in the afternoon on the 25th of July, which would have been yesterday. And then the other call with the suspicious person was at 5:39 in the morning on the 25th. Anything else?
From that burglary, did you guys ever pinpoint where the tools all came from at all, or still kind of just investigating?
One business for sure, because the suspect actually told officers where he had taken them from.
Do you have an address for that business at all? Or Flash Street or anything?
It's on Upper North Cliff area, upper like North Cliff and Benson area.
Do you have the location for that burglary again? The first one you mentioned?
We were called out to South Arcadia Road, and then the actual burglary would have taken place up in the North Cliff Benson area.
Do you have the block on South Arcadia Road?
I think it was the 2300 block.
Saturday, you guys were called out to possible kidnapping. Do you have any updates on that, where the RP advised she was taken and put into a truck?
Okay. At this point, That investigation is ongoing and continuing. We actually have two detectives from my section that are out right now actively seeking some information on that. The challenging portion of that came into play is that the phone call that was made to us is something that we're not able to get more information on at this point right now. As everybody knows, if you have a cell phone, even if you don't have service for that emergency purpose, you are able to call 911 with that. It kind of, prohibits our investigation in some ways to try to find that person if they really do need help. But what we've found so far with the investigation done by our patrol officers and also our on-call detectives that evening was that we don't believe that anybody is in danger at this point, but we are continuing to follow up on it more through surveillance in the area. A couple of the local motels in the area of Russell and Minnesota were very, very helpful when it came to this call. So a shout out to their staff for really helping the officers out. Because it was a busy weekend, there's a lot of vehicles in the area. We were able to check a lot of those vehicles and actually talk with a lot of the patrons up there and cross off a lot of things on our list that kind of led this down maybe a little bit of a rabbit hole that maybe somebody might have made a prank call, but we don't quite know yet, so we are continuing that investigation. But if anybody has information about that, we certainly ask you to call Crime Stoppers or just give us a call.
Also, do you have any detail on the arrest you guys made Friday afternoon on that kidnapping out of the Brookings?
I believe that was actually made by the task force, maybe in conjunction with us. I don't have any specific information. There wasn't anything in the log about that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything today? All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good week.